Good evening. An 81-year-old woman was conned out of her life savings of more than £100,000 by postal fraudsters. The scam was uncovered by her son, but only after his mother's death. Now Russell Eaton is warning other people not to only beware of scams themselves, but also to keep an eye on elderly relatives who might be taken in. Andy Bevan reports.
There are thousands of them, some using first names to appear more personal and friendly, others promising fabulous prizes and millions in cash. But all these letters have two things in common. They were all sent to retired hairdresser Vicky Westwood, and they all wanted her money. Many of them got it. The Stourbridge pensioner mailed off cheques and postal orders every week, £40 here, £50 there, registration fees in return for becoming a big winner. Over 6 years, Vicky parted with her life savings of around £100,000. She died on New Year's Eve at the age of 81, and it was then that her only child, her son Russell Eaton, discovered the stash of correspondence hidden away in a bedroom.
There's numerous scams. There's the standard, you have won 25,000, 100,000, whatever the value is. There's clairvoyant scams, which actually, in my opinion, are the worst of the lot. They're very psychological, and they talk to her, and everything's personalised, so it says, it's Dear Vicky, and so on with it. But those ones then talk about not divulging anything to anybody that she knows, because they'll turn against her.
On some weeks, Russell thinks his mother was sending out £1,000 to various scammers across the world. Many would respond with friendly but persuasive phone calls to Vicky, who noted down the details of every conversation, sometimes even casting doubt on their veracity. But still she dreamed of being a winner, and still she spent her life savings, as well as the contents of a trust fund set up for her by her late husband.
Although she was 81, she got all her faculties, very, very strong, and we can't understand how this has come about and how she's got into it. But if you read the letters and the way that they're done, it is almost a form of brainwashing that's done with it. And because I think they then follow them up with the phone calls afterwards, they almost befriend them. It's almost like a grooming process that they go through.
The National Fraud Intelligence Bureau, under its public banner Action Fraud, is now looking into Vicky's case, but they say she's not alone in falling for these cons. Russell, meanwhile, says he wants to make others aware just how devious these scams are. It's too late for his family, but he says others, particularly those with elderly relatives, need to be on their guard and pay close attention to what's dropping onto their doormat. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
82 new police constables took to the streets of the West Midlands today. The first new faces on the force here since the recruitment freeze was announced 5 years ago. The decision to stop taking on new officers was in response to government cuts to police budgets. However, as Callum Watkinson reports, new boots on the ground doesn't mean that the austerity drive is over.
New beats. The first 82 of 450 new police officers hit the streets of the West Midlands today, ending a 5-year recruitment freeze by Britain's second largest police force.
What made me take the step really is I've got a young daughter and I really wanted to make her society a better place to grow up with and for her to have a better West Midlands.
And what do you think the sort of primary role of a police officer is?
Serving the public, helping the public, being not just a face but a person, so they can turn to someone they can rely on.
Though broadly welcomed, some warn these new recruits will not reverse an overall drop in police numbers in the West Midlands. The recruitment of 450 officers will stabilise police officer strength, said the head of Human Resources last year, although it will need to reduce to reflect lower budget settlements. The force has seen its budget cut by £126 million over the last 5 years and will lose a further £23 million in the next financial year.
The reality is it's a drop in the ocean really when you look at the bigger picture. We have already lost 1,500 police officers since 2010 and going forward with the governmental cuts it looks like it will be another 1,000 police officers. That's 2,500 less police officers on the beat in the West Midlands.
The region's Police and Crime Commissioner says the reality of falling numbers need not hamper the aspiration to serve the public well.
David Jameson, you're taking on officers today, but the reality is the general direction of travel here in the West Midlands is fewer officers and fewer staff, isn't it?
I'm afraid the numbers of police officers we have and the staff that back them up has reduced and will continue to reduce. But I'm pleased to say these new officers hold back that tide of loss that we've had, and they will contribute, I'm absolutely sure, to making our police force effective and what the people want in the years to come.
There is no doubting the enthusiasm and dedication of these new recruits as their police careers begin. But there are big questions about what the force they have just joined might look like by the time they retire. Callum Watkinson, ITV News, Birmingham.
The Bishop of Lichfield has announced he's retiring. The Right Reverend Jonathan Gledhill will stand down in September after 12 years. He's the 98th Bishop of Lichfield and oversees the clergy of Shrewsbury, Stafford and Wolverhampton. Just ahead of a special meeting of canons at Lichfield Cathedral this afternoon, Bishop Jonathan told ITV News about his plans for retirement and had this advice for his successor, who, since recent changes in the Church of England rules, could be a woman.
I think, first of all, to come in realising what a huge asset the people of the West Midlands are for anyone in my kind of position, that they really are just great, and not just the Christians, but the people that you meet in the shops and the marketplaces and so on. It's a very precious asset. When we actually retire at the end of September, it'll be 40 years of ministry, of ordained ministry. And seemed like a good moment to say, this is it.
How are you going to spend your retirement?
I shall take a 6-month break. I'm hoping to join a cookery course, take more responsibility for the cooking, and will of course help out in the local church when requested.
Archaeologists who led the search for Richard III believe another skeleton they found during the dig may be that of a prominent woman. She was found in a lead-lined stone coffin in an important part of the church. Tests have shown she had high status, but her identity still remains a mystery. Hannah Stoke reports.
Around 700 years after her death, this was the moment the Lady in Lead's resting place was revealed. Her skeleton lay in a lead coffin inside a limestone sarcophagus within Leicester's Greyfriars Priory. In a cruel wrench, the team discovered the coffin on the final day of the first dig in 2012.
Ran out of time to look at it closer, so we had to cover it back up and leave it in situ, and you wouldn't believe how frustrating it is to have to cover something as great as that up and without knowing what's inside it. She had a very high status diet. She was eating a lot of fish and meat, and in fact when you compare her diet with Richard III's, it's only just below his adult diet.
We had it transported to Leicester Royal Infirmary initially because there was a slight chance that the lead in a coffin had actually caused some organic preservation of the remains within it. But as it turned out, after an examination with an endoscope, it was clear that the person in this coffin had become skeletonized, so the normal processes of decay had taken place.
Rather than try and break the solder of the seals of the coffin, because that could sort of destroy important archaeological information, was that we'd cut a line around the base of the coffin, lift the lid and sides off it and leave the base as a tray with the skeletal material on. And it is a little like opening a tin can. It is just a simple case of getting a knife in and cutting the lead, and it cuts really smoothly. There's only one that we know for certain that is definitely buried in our Friary Church. Her name's Emma Holt. She's probably from Neville Holt in Leicestershire. But that's about all we know about her. We know she was buried around about 1290 in the Friary Church, and that's it. We don't know her age at death, we don't know what she did for a living, we don't know what she looked like, we don't have any descendants from her. So despite having a known woman buried here and a skeleton with a set of attributes, we can't link the two together, and unfortunately this skeleton will always remain anonymous.
Experts hope further study of the coffin will reveal more about King Richard and the history of the people of Leicester. But as for her, the Lady in Lead's identity remains a mystery. Hannah Stokes, ITV News.
Time now for a look at the weather forecast. Here's Manali Luca.
What's in store for today? ITV Local Weather, sponsored by Centre Parks.
Hello there, good evening. After a cold and windy start to the week with some wintry showers, we will end this week on a milder note, temperatures into double figures and feeling more like spring. Now through the course of tonight we're going to see some wintry showers push in from the west, rain, sleet and snow. The snow mainly over the higher ground, but we could see it covering even at lower levels. The Met Office have got a weather warning out in force for this as temperatures drop close to or below freezing. The risk of ice forming on any untreated surfaces as well. Tomorrow morning the showers will tend to clear through and thereafter it's a largely dry, sunny day, but it will be another windy and a cold day ahead as well. Bye-bye for now.
ITV Local Weather, sponsored by Centre Parks.
Now that's all we have time for tonight. Don't forget to check out our website to get live news updates from across the Central region, itv.com/central. For now, enjoy the rest of your night.